Kenny not coming?
Oh, we have to wait.
3 minutes. Jeez. 3 minutes. I went wild. Yes, I got it at 4:30. I'm sorry, hold on, guys.
You want, we're gonna talk about the tank yet?
Yes.
They tiny voucher.
Big voucher, right?
I fell off the chair.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe, oh, I better read this and.
Hey, the check is in the money.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, sorry, it's only $700,000 for the tank.
Yeah.
Whee.
Nice clean.
Well, it may be a little bit under that. When they first started talking about
I started recording, guys, just so you know. Be ready.
Okay, I'll go ahead and lead us to pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There are a couple of items that, well, first of
I
all,
started
someone
recording,
make a
guys,
motion.
just so you know.
Second. Okay. Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Couple of items that I came in late in the day that are not on the agenda. One of them, we have an employee who came down with COVID on the board meeting, planning board, and she had vaccinations. She got it anyway. I know my daughter and my grandson both got it twice, so it can happen. Both of their cases, they were sick about a day and a half and then went away. Hopefully that's what happened. But it's still alive and well, is what I'm sharing. The other thing is that about 5 minutes to 5 this afternoon, that's good news for Christine. We knew that the housing market was really running rampant. And I heard the news this evening that in October this year versus October last year, I think it's 15.5% or 13.5% increase in average selling price and in our area. But we had already achieved our mortgage tax for the year, the first half of the year. But the mortgage tax came in for the year $469,653 above forecast. Above. So we were pushing $500,000 above forecast. That is fund day, that is town-wide. So that will certainly. And what we did, we had budgeted 330,000, but we got 799,653. So that's where we come up with 469. For this coming year, 22, we increased the 330, I think, to 550 or something. 600, okay, 600, based on what we were seeing this year. Okay. So, all that being said, I'd like to give Sean here tonight. I've asked him to review the current status of the following projects. Go through those. Go. Can we, Mary, can we give her, can we give the mic to I bet you can. He's waiting for Thursday night.
Good evening, how's everybody tonight?
Good, thank you.
So I had filed a report with you electronically. It was late, and part of the reason it was late was I was waiting to get word from the health department The health department did approve the treatment at Hamiltonian Park. We got the written approval today. That was sent to your operator, and I know from speaking with your operator last week, the week before, he had already started ordering materials. So I will follow up with him to see what his general schedule is, but hopefully, we passed the first hurdle, we got the approval. Now we're gonna wait, get the equipment, materials, and then we have to do the install and then we can start the treatment.
Again, for the public, this is the brown water that we've had in Hamiltonian Park. We've had it for years in other places. But we had a case, Friday, Nick? Friday of last week, where we had a pump failure in Arcadia Hills. Nick brought in the water. It was as black as this microphone. There it is. Okay. So he likes coffee, but he doesn't make coffee out of that. He doesn't wash it
I don't want to do anything,
with white.
but show it to you guys.
So I think, we did call Dominic out in the field. He said, yeah, it's gonna not be prepared till the end of the day. It's a big job. But I think what we ought to do is we ought to just go from Hamiltonian Park right over to Arcadia Hills, find out what we need to do there, start the process there as well. Okay. Cool. So I can go back to yours one.
The highway garage, last week, I had a pre-construction meeting with Tam and Highway Superintendent Knoll. The main purpose of the meeting was to coordinate the installation of the shoring and coordination with the highway department operations. Obviously, they're gonna need to store their trucks in the garage during the winter. We're going to have shoring towers in there. They're going to need to have access, and the existing doors are gonna need to be removed from the building because of the overhead rail system on those doors. So the purpose of that meeting was to discuss all those items and try to work out a solution. Tam believes that they may have a conceptual solution for the doors. They're going to submit something for Robert to review. They discussed possibly building a exterior enclosure, if you will. They were going to need some sort of enclosure anyway to do masonry work in the winter. So they're going to try to incorporate some way in which Robert can utilize the existing doors, or at least several of the existing doors, so the vehicles can access the garage. So that portion is pending. Tam did provide a schedule, which I gave to you in my report this evening. They anticipate completing the installation of the shoring by mid-January. I've also asked them to give us the proposal for the permanent repair work. That is also an emergency. We'll get the price, and we'll come back to you with the price when we receive.
In terms of freezing water lines, sewer lines, bathrooms, things like that, we protect ourselves so those things can be used during this period of time.
Yeah, this work shouldn't affect any of your internal plumbing or anything like that.
Okay.
The biggest concern is keeping the vehicles warm, mostly diesel vehicles.
Gotcha. Okay.
George, you had asked about the foundation. Because when the insurance company's engineer was here, he indicated those were significant and whether steel plating was considered. Tam had the same question. I spoke to Tam today. They're still evaluating the cost of the steel plating, but as of late today, and the quotes they received late last week, they believe that the steel plating option would cost more than concrete option. Spoke to my structural engineer after that. He indicated that was one of the reasons that he had suggested concrete in the first place. But I told Tam that if they'd like, we're more than happy to consider looking at steel plating. But obviously, if it would be a cost increase, it was not a minor cost increase. It was tens of thousands of dollars. This price of steel has risen dramatically. But if they could find steel cheaper, or if they perhaps had some that they can use, we would definitely consider it. Is there any questions on the high garage?
When I talked to Andy Berliner about building this plant, steel is the big, that's a big, it's like 70% more or something.
Sorry. Yeah, very.
The other's 8 month delivery.
What was the steel gonna be used for? Or
At the base of the shoring towers, we have some concerns about the towers punching through the concrete slab. So we're going to work on the foundation. Heritage Estates, I have not received anything from the developer. I do not know if the town received anything. So I don't have anything to report.
What's it gonna take to move it along? We've got a lot of this money.
Yes, I anticipated that he would have reached out to you, just as you know, other developers have contacted you about getting on your agenda and getting processing. I don't really understand the length. Woodland Estates, that one is moving in the right direction. They finished the paving early November, you recall. I was out there late last week. There was still some remaining punch list items left. There was some signage. And also mailboxes. I followed up with the developer. He said that the signs were completed late last week, late Friday, and the mailboxes were completed today. Hope to get out there tomorrow and confirm that. And once the punch list field items are done, then it's just the administrative items, filing the easements, the filing anything that Ashley's office needs for you, except the roads, things like that, and then posting in the maintenance bond.
Back to Heritage. When I did talk to the builder at Woodland Estates, I said, you know what, Jacob? If you turn it over to us, we're gonna get all the questions, all the complaints, all that stuff. Why are you not doing this now? Plus, the cost of asphalt is gonna go up between now and next year for sure. We go 3 days later, he's out there putting the asphalt down, he's getting it all done. So I think you just saw, well, why was he holding on? So it doesn't make a bit of sense.
No, I don't think so. I think in Woodland's case, they had 1 or 2 lots that weren't completed. They were looking to complete those lots because if they paved the top portion and damaged the road, we were going to make them replace them. So they were waiting for those 2 lots, I think, to be sold and construction. At least gotten to the point where they don't have any heavy equipment.
What I'm sharing though is the builder's advantage to get out the issues.
Right. I want to go back to Heritage for a moment too. You know, we have a huge cash bond, cash. So when do you start the process of using the cash to correct the items on that punch list that he is not doing?
Well, that's just the thing.
Everybody know?
Outside of the well, you're familiar with,
Yeah.
there really isn't a lot of field work to be done. Very small, very minor items. There was a
Right.
drainage issue we talked about.
Right.
There was some work within the catch basin. Then there was the posting of some numbers for emergency services.
Right.
House numbers, essentially. That was really all the field work that required to be done. Most of the delay, I believe, maybe in the administrative items, solutions to easements and things like that. I had heard in passing that there may have been some difficulty obtaining easements that weren't filed originally. Yeah, from now the property is owned by private
Right.
owners, and they may not want to provide an easement.
But when can we start using that money in order to get this thing moving? Maybe legally we should.
Before you go to the money, let me make it.
Okay.
Can I make a comment? It's my understanding that one significant construction process is catchment basin at Laurel 54 was held up by easement language, which has now been finished and proposed. I believe that was last week. The homeowner still has not signed off on this easement. Builder is ready and willing to go ahead with the plans that were years ago. The reason's not clear to me, he never did, in fact, when he should have been. Now, he's in agreement with the increased pipe size to handle what's projected to be possibly more water. And he is waiting for this easement so he can get on that property to finish the job. It's not his delay.
Well, actually, what do we do if this guy doesn't give us these? Sewer?
So it's an easement for the stormwater, the additional,
There's a catchment basin that's required to ameliorate this drainage problem. And the catch basement is on the homeowner's property. That's the lowest point. If the catch basin is moved off of his property outside of his fence, then he'll have to scoop out soil or something so that the water can get there, which will obviate the usefulness of the fence. So drainage should go where the plans call for it to go, which is behind its fence and at the low point where the water will go. I do not have any more understanding of why this just isn't taking place.
So it depends if it's a condition. I would think usually the easements would be filed before there could be any building permit issued. So if they're
Right.
trying to do a change in plans, but then there can't be any building permit issued until they ultimately get that easement squared away and settled.
Sounds like this fellow doesn't want to give these.
It was on the original.
I'm sorry. But
So what, well, this thing caved in and there was real problems with it originally, I guess. But anyway, he has to give an easement
In
where
order
this is
In order to build,
to do this fix. So that being the case, what happens? I'm not gonna do it.
is it tied to the building of the house or is this something that's required?
No.
Okay, it's required.
Hold on.
Then it would probably be some sort of enforcement action. I have to look at what
Yeah.
your resolution provides for and what the status is.
No, it was not. In response to, you've been in the subdivision, there's a lot of houses where the rear yards, but and to alleviate some of the stormwater drainage in those rear yards, developer put in the French drain runs, and spans many parcels. It then drains towards the roadway, and at the roadway, that French drain is changed into a pipe system to get into your collection. So that's right that point, that's where the catch basin is located. The catch basin forms a point where it transitions over.
My concern is your partner, this is Kelly. She's on vacation, so the second, we'll be back to the 7th of December.
I could speak, I will speak with her about that before.
Okay.
Certainly, I've been in touch with her all day, so.
So the original question I asked is, how can we do a dual track? Because we've been jerking around with this thing for years, with a punch list, and well, and the drainage, the snow removal, we put that. And at this particular point, are we able to just start the process of maybe, it probably will take a little time, of going after that cash bond, whatever is not done in a very short period of time, just use the cash bond. So,
I'd have to look at the terms
would you mind?
of when that could.
Perfect, yeah. This way, I mean, I don't like to wait. I think we're done. We're done. If they would look at that might motivate the builder to do all the other things that just need to be done. To get this, I want to say out of my hair, but that's probably not a good analogy. Okay, okay, that's my.
Okay.
Do we have a conversation with that homeowner? I had a conversation with them.
I was just minding my own business, walking around the development. Not really. I said, what's the investment? 54. Yeah, so I walked up to this woman, I said, you know what 54 Laurel is? She said, yeah, I'm in the house, I own it. So, she directed me to her husband and walked into the backyard. And basically, as I recall the conversation, it was essentially all this water comes down through the backyards as you were talking about, and it collects in my area right there, and it really swells. So what he was looking for was that the developer would put more of a berm in that property, build it up a bit, and then to have the actual drain on the, as you were saying before, on the other side of the fence. That's what he was looking to do. And so that's his perspective at this particular point. Whether he can be talked to and actually modify that in some way, I really don't know. That's his perspective. He thinks that the water is collecting in his backyard and it should be moving further to the other side of the fence. Some kind of a catch basin there and then out into the street wherever it goes from there.
Yes, and I think we spoke about that in previous meetings. You had asked me about alternatives, and I suggested that one. But even if the developer wants to proceed with that alternative, I think they would be required to enter this residence property to do the grading that we described before. So in either event, the developer needs to work something out, in my opinion, with the homeowner to finish this up.
It seems like just reiterate what Phil said, the big issue is well. I don't think that's going to be fixed anytime soon.
2 wells,
Yeah.
5 and 6.
So whatever we have to keep behind for that there.
I think
And
we
then
should
the rest
start
of
with
the
the-
stuff, we hopefully resolve. And
Right.
then,
Perhaps we need to schedule a meeting.
Yeah.
Sean, you, myself, Phil, who's my co-chair of Water and Sewer. Ashley or Rick or someone.
Yeah.
And put the heat on this fellow,
Absolutely.
you know, just go from there.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Joe, you had a comment?
Yeah, I did. So I spoke to, Mateus has the documentation on the, application, from Roger. He got it on Friday. He's held up legal. I think he's getting ready to sign it before, the 4 houses that are waiting on the, to sign off on the, pipes that go through the
In
property.
their yard, yeah.
It went to the homeowners association today, he's delivering it tomorrow. So those should be signed sometime this week. And the problem is, Mateus wants a little bit more than he may be entitled to, but they're working through that problem according to Steve Esposito. We should have this all resolved by the end of the week. Hopefully.
Well, if we don't, we need to have a meeting.
The issue I think you have though is it's the homeowners that are holding it up.
No, there's lots of issues. This is just one. We have 2 wells out there he has done nothing on.
Yeah.
And neither one of them are usable. One
Correct.
of them is very, very low volume and the other one's sulfur. So I think maybe we need to jar the
Start the process.
group. Because we're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of those wells.
Yeah.
I'd rather have him do it than us. Okay, but thank you for that input, Joe. You know what? At least if it's the 54 Laurel, then maybe it'll work. You can buy that one. Okay. All right.
That's what I have is water storage tank.
Yeah.
But today you did obviously receive that invoice. That
Yep.
represents the cost of the installation of the tank, which has been completed now for a couple of weeks. The remaining work is site work. They were supposed to install the fence last week. I went up on Thursday, it wasn't done. Called the contractor, he said it was scheduled for Friday. So I will try to get back up there for the Thanksgiving holiday. The fence is important because it's an attractive nuisance.
Right.
So we're really didn't try to get them to keep that before they complete anything else. And then you just finished flushing in Arcadia, and Dominic has indicated that they are ready to provide water to fill the tank. So once the fence is up, we'll coordinate with Dominic and the contractor to get the tank filled, disinfected, and tested. We spoke with Dominic, he had an idea to utilize the hydrant adjacent to the tank. It's in there, and to pump it through a check valve, so there's no cross contamination.
So that's what we're gonna do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I contacted the health department, and they were okay with that.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. Okay, good.
So this should be online when,
I would say that it should be online in a couple of weeks, hopefully by the next meeting, for December 9th.
right? And Christine, we have the money too, right? We got the $100,000 check from the state.
Right, and the grant proceeds.
That's what,
I mean, the band proceeds.
right. So we got a van and we got the, okay. So you can sleep well tonight. We're not gonna overcharge.
Just gotta pay for it.
And for the public, this tank has been living on borrowed time. We had it inspected with a camera going down inside 3 years ago. And they said, well, you might go 3 years. Well, a couple of months ago, we had a hole that started spurting out the side. We just the bolt in it. So that's how close we're finishing this baby. So good for us. We got our money's worth. Sean, thank you. Any other questions for Sean? Because he's got to go to another meeting.
Do you want me to stay for Salesian?
Oh, yes.
I have to give you the update if you want to stay. if you
Well,
want to.
okay, well, that's the next one.
You want? Okay.
Okay, so the next one is, review and approve a joint town and village resolution regarding demolition of the city school building. And I've asked Ashley if she would just go through these warehouses for us.
Sure. So this is the joint, or actually, thank you. This is the joint resolution authorizing the demolition of the Salesian school building. Whereas the town of Goshen Town owns a parcel of property in the village of Goshen Village located at 1 Craigville Road in the village's rural density residential RR and architectural design ADD zoning districts, 49.1 acres. It's known as the Salesian property. And whereas the Salesian property contains a long abandoned Salesian school building, and said building is located outside of the boundary of the village's ADD district. And whereas pursuant to an intermunicipal agreement between the town and the village dated October 29th, 2003, although the title to the property is in the name of the town and the village have agreed to exercise joint control over the ultimate use, development, maintenance, and operation of this Salesian property. And whereas the town desires to proceed with the demolition of the abandoned Salesian school building, which is known as the project, through the competitive bidding process, including mandating compliance with the state's prevailing wage requirements and funding the demolition through the town's A fund monies, fund anticipation notes, bands, charged to the town's A fund or a combination of the same. And whereas under the Village of Goshen zoning code, the project requires oversight, approvals, and permits from the village. And whereas the town and village have reviewed this project in the context of the decision of the New York State Court of Appeals in Ray County of Monroe, 72 NY 2nd 338, 1988, considering the County of Monroe's balancing of public interest test, and have found as follows regarding the applicability of the zoning and land use regulatory jurisdiction of the village and its agencies over the project, known as the Monroe Inquiry. Number one, neither the village nor the town is a legally superior jurisdiction to the other, and therefore neither is entitled to any preference regarding general municipal powers and this project. Number two, the project is for a governmental purpose that benefits both the residents of the village and those town residents outside of the village. Number three, enforcement of the village's zoning laws will have no substantive impact on the project, involving simply the demolition of a building and the necessary associated protective measures, but the process of obtaining such approvals may unnecessarily delay the project's completion. Protection of both the village and town will be served by the town's insurances and the joint and coordinated oversight of the project by both the town and the village building inspectors. Number four, the impact upon both the town and village's legitimate local interests are identical and serve the town's residents both within and without the village. Now, therefore, after due deliberations, the town and village of Goshen, acting by and through their respective town board and village board of trustees, hereby agree as follows. Resolved that the town and village authorize the undertaking of the project in accordance with the various rights and responsibilities set forth in the above mentioned intermunicipal agreement. And it is further resolved that the project will be undertaken as a public works project, subject to the New York State competitive bidding and prevailing wage laws, with the town providing insurance coverage for the project with the appropriate provision of bonds and insurances and the indemnifications of the town and village by the contractors performing the work for the project. And it is further resolved that the financing for the project will be accomplished by the town's use of its general A fund monies, bond anticipation notes, bands, charged to the town's general A fund, or a combination of the same, ensuring consistent with the intent of the provisions of the above mentioned intermunicipal agreement, that there be no resulting double taxation on village residents. And it is further resolved that the town is exempt from the village's zoning and permitting regulations for the project. And it is further resolved that the town and village building inspectors will jointly oversee the inspection of the project for the benefit of both the town and village.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Are there any questions of Ashley in regard to this resolution? Would someone like to make a motion? We approve this resolution as presented.
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution to remove the Salesian School.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? I'm going to have a roll call, please. Myself, Doug will vote aye. Ken Newbold, no, not present. Rick Florio.
Aye.
George Lyons.
Aye.
Phil Cantorino.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. That's moving along.
Can you give you a little bit of background, just shortly?
That's the next, you're next.
Okay.
So it says, here an update, Councilman Cantorino.
A little bit of background with the resolution. I had spoken to Rick and I know he spoke to you. As far as the village is concerned, Dave Donovan gave the resolution to Scott Wall. Didn't appear they had a problem with it, but they're having a meeting tonight. We don't know if they're going to pass it tonight or not, but it doesn't really matter. We pass it, they can pass it whenever they want. So just bring it up to date on that. In addition to that, as far as the removal of the building and how we're going to do it, Sean and I talked earlier today, and I talked to the mayor a couple of weeks ago about this. I think we have to really look for an alternative route to get the debris off the property. It really is not feasible to go through the library's road. That's just an evil that we have. So Sean has agreed to take a look at it. We know there is a road there. We don't know if it'll take trucks or not. There's a gate in the front. I don't know if the truck will fit there. You have to remove a parcel of fence to get out on Craigland Road. But that's all, now that we have to look at all the particulars. Sean, you want to talk about what you're doing or you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So last week, I got a copy of the 2003 IMA from Rick's office. I went through that. I had questions for Rick about some permitting procedural requirements, the uniqueness of this with the town and the village interacting. I provided Phil this evening, which he hasn't seen yet, with the draft schedule that really summarizes the actions that need to be taken relative to getting contract documents out to the bid. It's in a draft form really because I do need to include Rick on some of these procedural matters. In terms of the actual preparation of contract documents, I went to Mary's office last week, reviewed the files. Surprisingly, Mary did have copies of the 1930 architectural plans on the building. So I'm going to utilize those plans as much as I can to figure out the areas and volumes that we have to deal with and incorporate those in the specifications. And I'm going to be returning to you at some point with some questions, not you in this form, but perhaps Phil legally, just in terms of what are we looking to do in terms of restoration of the property? We looking just to topsoil and seedings or landscaping. So some of those details, the access we're talking about, we'll have to flush all those out as contract documents develop.
There is one thing I don't know, we probably need to put in there, Phil and I talked about, is a time capsule.
Right.
Yes, Rick had sent me a message about that, and I did put that in the project file, and I think incorporated it.
Yeah, totally.
Do you know specifically where that is?
I think I do. I say, I went and I looked at the building and by the front door on the left-hand support pillar, there's a gate.
Okay.
And I think that's usually where they put the time capsule. Okay. Here. So I think that's where the time capsule is.
I would try to locate that on the plans to see if it was ever in there to confirm that. If not, we'll have to work something out.
Yeah, and it may have been put in later. Sometimes they don't put in at the time they build it. We had a time capsule here for our 200th anniversary. Myron, I was on board Myron, is another 80 years to go. Anyway, it's here.
Well, I thought you had 4 years.
Anyway, we'll address the time capsule. Maybe when the building is taken.
Sure, yeah, and of course, any other items that talk like that.
Yeah.
Access is obviously one of the large items. What ultimately you want to do with that site is a large item.
Well, the way I look at it, they're totally separate issues. The side, right now, we're concerned about taking a hazardous building down because it's a hazard. Later on, I mean, I'm sure we're going to have lots of people that have ideas as to what should happen to that parcel of property. We'll have the recreation and everything.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. I just meant in terms of, we just going to topsoil it?
Yeah.
Are we going to remove the asphalt pavement, that type of, those items?
Topsoil, soil.
That's fine.
And then, we'll get all the recommendations and whatever anybody is thinking to do. Okay.
One other thing, though, this is the time capsule was put in there by the Sleepy Brothers. Certainly, as we get ready to go, we
Yeah.
certainly need to make celebrations for them to be invited to the area. Theirs. So to speak.
Just wanted to add,
Yeah.
so was talking about what the resolution passed, and it wasn't passed, and then there was one rejected, just mentioned that we voted on it, and we cut that pipeline, so.
Okay, good, thank you. Oh, great, all right, so you ready?
Okay. Yes, George, George got a
So
question.
I guess. Just thinking that this, all of the material has to be removed. There's a large basement. And can some of it be buried in the basement area? Because there is a lot of brick, it seems a shame almost that the brick is not going to go for any use, but taking it apart, and using it again is kind of ridiculous, I guess. But I was just thinking, is there any room for some of it to be buried in the basement there, and then, as you say, the topsoil over and over, we decide to do at the top? What does it all have to be removed?
Well, you brought that up, so in my email this evening, Phil, that he hasn't seen it, that was actually one of my questions. How deep are we going to go with foundation movers and things like that? It is possible that some inert materials could be buried. Brick would possibly be one of those materials, but it's something we're going to have to flush out as we develop time to time.
Well, one of the things that we need to keep in mind, if that spot is to be used at a later date for another
Right.
building, you don't want to bury stuff in it that might have
Right.
asbestos in it.
No,
Because then we got this
Right.
whole charge all over again.
We will not be burying it. It has asbestos in it.
Well, if you can separate it, what I'm sharing with you, that's easy to say.
Right.
Because it's my understanding when we had the structural engineers look at this back in 2003 and 4, that asbestos was pretty widespread in the walls. So, or whatever that, shove it over, you can scoop it up. I don't know, I'm not in that business. Okay, very good. Okay.
Question, do we have a remediation report on what asbestos is? Has anybody done that stuff yet?
Yeah. Phil had it done a year ago, and then we had the Quest. You want to talk about Quest?
Yeah. We had two recommendations from Quest, who does this building pollution and so on and so forth. And he went out and got some preliminary comments as far as from developers, whatever, builders, whatever, on how it, two options that we had. One was to go in there and remove the asbestos, remove all the asbestos, and then take down the building. And the other one was to declare the whole building contaminated. What would happen is, if in order to take the asbestos, you first had to send engineers to build platforms to go up to the roof with some of the asbestos is in the pipe and so on and so forth. So the cost would be extremely prohibitive, because you first have to do the engineering on the inside of the building. It's very unsafe to do it. So it was decided by the boards that we would just take the whole building down, declare the whole building toxic, and take it all in. So that's as much as I can tell you as far as.
Sorry, but at some point, we're gonna have to identify what the asbestos is, because it's gotta be carted out of it. It's gotta be bagged and carted out of it.
That's right.
So has anybody done that yet? First, has anybody done it, or did we put that out to bid?
We're gonna put the whole thing in.
But I think everything's going out is
Yeah.
considered as asbestos on it.
Asbestos, so it's
I
all gone.
don't, there's no plan to say, oh, it's on the pipes, let's take the pipes out, it's not, let's take the whole.
Would we be
building.
concerned not knowing if and where the asbestos is? How are we gonna get bids from contractors not knowing where it is? Shouldn't it be remediated first Maybe that's a question for you.
Yeah, consistent with what Phil had said, yeah, we had two options. One is the typical option that you see in most cases, where you go in, you do a remediation plan, you identify the locations that may have asbestos. In some instances, you'll do testing to confirm it.
Right.
If it's there, you go in, you take that out. That occurs more often than not when the structure is capable of supporting people and safe. This structure is past that point. So as a way of example, it wouldn't even be safe to send somebody into the building and go up to the second story because you don't know what the floors are. Condition of those are. So rather than design shoring to support all that and then send people in to do remediation work, we're just treating the entire building as asbestos containing materials. The only items that could potentially be not considered asbestos containing are these inert materials, perhaps like wood. But other than that, every single piece of building material in there would be considered asbestos containing and would be removed from the site and treated as if it has asbestos.
So do you believe that we have the ability to crush the brick and use it for pathing and stuff inside the park?
You may have to speak to somebody that specializes in this to realize if we can do that. I'm not sure if there's any potential for asbestos to adhere to bricks or anything like that. So,
Okay. That it, Phil?
That's it?
Okay,
Oh, well, we already talked about the road and stuff. That's it for now.
well, okay, but that's something that, again, however we carve this material out, the road, the only paved road is the one that goes by the library, and they certainly don't want that, destroy the road and everything else, so we're gonna have to find another way out. That's part of what Sean will be working with.
All right.
Okay, very good. Thank you, good discussion.
have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Okay, you as well.
John.
Thank you for moving this up.
Okay, the next is review the minutes of the November 8th, 2021. And, are there any additions or corrections to these minutes? I would still like to make a motion, we approve these as presented.
So we'll.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. The information on the current water flushing upstate, Arcadia and Hamiltonian Park are completed. Heritage will be done next week, and Scotchtown and Stonehead will be complete the week after November 29th. So a lot's been going on. Our water and sewer people have been very, very busy, and so they're just trying to work through everything they've got to do. But it's on the docket to be done. Okay, this next one is information, and I've asked Christine to explain it to us. The town of Goshen is required to have a cybersecurity policy and employee training in order to purchase cybersecurity insurance. So with that, Christine, you want to talk? You can get the mic.
You. With the new insurance applications for the cybersecurity insurance, they will not even offer us a quote unless we have multi-factor authentication, which is when you log on to your computer remotely, you have to put in your user ID and your password, and then they'll send like a code to your phone or something like that to further check your identification. But beyond, and that Sarvis PC is working on, and hopefully they will get that set up this week. But beyond that, the applications are asking a lot of questions about our cybersecurity policy, which right now all we have is an internet usage policy. They're also asked a lot about employee training, and even so much detail as to what percentage of employees fail the phishing emails that should be sent out as part of the training. So we did contract with Meaning Tree Computer to provide the training. It's online. There's an annual training component and then weekly emails that are short videos, and they ask questions at the end of that. And they also send out monthly phishing emails as well. And that, I believe, was just sent out either Friday or Monday. They started that training.
And that's employees who,
Have town of Goshen emails, and also those that use their personal emails, like on some of the land use boards, they don't have specific town of Goshen emails, but they do email frequently back and forth. They will have the annual training and the weekly videos, not the phishing training. So that's, that will fulfill that requirement on the applications. But the policy is the next thing we need to work on. And I had a template, which I realize is very long, and we'll need to start working on that.
the policies that you're looking at are the one we had, it's 22 pages,
Yes.
correct? So I mean, it's a big deal. And again, well, we have a lot of risk. A lot of risk with cybersecurity.
Right,
I mean, Phil and his business has been hacked twice, big time.
right,
And we were hacked on our internet system, big time.
on our website.
I'm sorry, website.
Right.
So we even changed vendors.
Mhm.
And so it's a lot of work and very costly. So I can see why these insurance companies want us to be as trained
Mhm.
as possible.
Right.
Policy that we follow and we do it right.
Right.
Isn't there something else about potential software?
Yeah, there's also another company, Black Point Software, that they also offer insurance. However, before you can even get a quote on the insurance, you have to download their software. And that monitors your computers 24/7. Just to see if anything doesn't look right and things like that. So that's another option that we can look at. And then the actual insurance ends up being less costly, but probably by the time you pay for the software and the insurance together, it's probably around the same cost as what we pay now. However, I think you have a higher level of confidence with this company since they're taking all the risk, and they're using their own software. So.
What I'm gonna do is ask Christine to be the point person on this, but I'm gonna ask George. George is our commissioner of insurance, to work with you on
Okay.
this. And to look at the cost and the timing and everything else, because there's gonna be a lot of work outside of this. So we just approve something later on, but a lot's going in.
Right.
So, okay. Very good, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And yeah, any questions for Christine?
Well, I don't have questions. It's just that I started, I met with Christine Thursday. And I started working on it. I touched base with Brent Townsend. And we're gonna get 5 quotes, right? 5 different insurance.
4 or 5.
Yeah, he told me.
Okay.
One of them being travelers, and I guess there's some difficulties, or at least that's what I referred to him, that there's some difficulties. It wasn't as comprehensive as
Right.
maybe some of the others. But what I did was I sent him a copy of this 40 page,
Okay, right.
thing, so he's reviewing that.
Mhm.
His initial glance through it was that his company, Marshall and Sterling, has something similar.
Okay,
Similar to this, so he's somewhat familiar with it.
right.
But I think what I heard you say is we have to have some security policy in place in order to get the quotes from these 5 different companies.
Not in place, not in
Oh.
place. It's just the
Oh.
multi-factor authentication has to be in place.
Mhm.
But there are a lot of questions on the applications regarding the policies.
Mhm.
So I think it's in our best interest to have a policy in place when we submit it, or at least,
Yeah.
I'll say if we're in the process.
So I think our next meeting is the 9th of December.
Right.
And possibly that would be a goal to. get
I'll have to,
something in place.
I have to ask Greg if we can wait that long to submit the applications. Otherwise, I'll just have to say that we're in the process of developing a policy.
Because we want to, naturally want to be the one that's most comprehensive.
Right, yes, because Meeting Tree Computer was the company that looked at the traveler's policy. And actually, they questioned it because in their experience, they found that travelers had a lot of exceptions and things that were not covered, that other policies might be covered.
And then I just had one other question, and I guess it's really an attorney question. When I was reviewing the this thing from Medium Tree,
Mhm.
I just comment, Ashley, if you would, I was maybe troubled a bit by the fact that this on page 2, if you have a copy of it,
Yes.
it says here, the client herself shall indemnify, defend, and hold Meeting Tree Computer Corporation harmless from and against all costs, losses, liabilities, and expenses arising out of any claims related to any cyber attacks, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. I understand, I mean, it's not a huge expense. I mean, we're talking about $1,800 or $1,800 a year, and it's more of a learning type of thing.
It's a training, yes.
I was just troubled by the fact, usually they have the comments like, you know, if it's our fault, then they hold, you know, harmless. And then by the same token, let's say Meeting Tree does something. You know, they're basically saying to us now here, whatever happens, you know, we're off the hook. We have no responsibility, absolutely no responsibility whatsoever. And I was a little troubled by it.
It's very broad. So I think it doesn't sound like, well, I'm not sure if you're going to be approving to this tonight, or you're still, you're still looking around. So we could definitely ask that they modify that language to have that typical disclaimer, except if it's, this excludes things that are caused by the, or by the, it would exclude anything caused by Meeting Tree.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think because the paragraph before that speaks about they don't want to be held liable if something happened, then it says you can't go after them and say, well, you didn't train us good enough. Something like that is a separate issue. But this, I think you could certainly propose different language for that.
I think the reason why I said I like George to work with Christine, there could be 100 other questions just like this. But where do we go from here? We have to have those answers before we bring it back to the board. It's not the place to discuss it really. It's too complex. Okay, but good. Christine and George, thank you for working on that. The next item is we've got a request for Christine to check the GFOA downstate holiday training seminar at Goshen on December 2nd. And that particular seminar is going to deal with security issues, threats, cyber insurance, and cybersecurity solutions, and disaster recovery plans. Cost of the seminar is only $95 plus I guess travel to get there. So probably a couple $100 and we're covered on this.
Monday. Overnight.
No. It's in Westchester. It's
Yeah,
an
you
hour
drive
away.
down
And it's
and
just the morning.
Right.
Till like 1 o'clock.
So would someone like to make a motion? We authorize Christine to attend this GFOA Downstate Holiday Training Center in New York.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I will also register for a webinar through Marshall and Stern, also on cybersecurity. I think that's either tomorrow or Wednesday as well.
Okay, the next one is review and approve hiring of Laura Lappy as a part-time clerk in the town police department effective November 29th, 2021. The rate of pay of $19.10 per hour. You can see her applications. She lives way yonder. She worked at Lowe's. She's been to college. Studied preschool. And so anyway, she's known. By the way, her deceased husband was a policeman, so she has that connection with the police department. So would someone like to make a motion? We accept the application of Laura Lappy is the exact title here. Part-time clerk in the town police department effective November 29th. Rate of pay $19.10 per hour.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
20 hours?
Yes,
20 hours?
Yeah.
no benefits. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next one is review and approve hiring Kathleen Collette as clerk to the supervisor effective November 30, 2021. The salary of $53,460. Should be the one that will be taking place.
Mary,
I'm trying to think of a title, okay, not a name, okay, but Mary, yes, who's at the current time doing both jobs. Would someone like to make a motion regarding, by the way, Kathleen was interviewed by Joe and Mary, the one they would like. She currently works over at Orange County. DPW, yeah. DMV.
DMV.
Oh, I'm sorry, DMV. Okay. She's attended SUNY Orange and also part and studied education and history, but she works for the DMV. Okay, would someone like to make a motion that we approve of hiring Kathleen Collette as clerk to the supervisor effective November 30th, 2021, at an annual salary of $53,460.
So moved.
And by the way, that is full time.
Second, 3,000.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, also under personnel, the next one is accept the resignation of police officer Thomas P. O'Connell, effective December 13th, 2021. He's a part-time policeman in the police department. He's done a good job. He's retiring after 20 years, and he's got full-time employment in a different field than police work, so that's where he's going to go. I did talk to the chief about, does he have a backfill yet? And he's got some people he's looking at. So nobody at this time. So would someone like to make a motion to accept the resignation of Officer O'Connell?
So moved with, if you can send him a letter of appreciation.
We'll do that.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. This next one is just information. A New York State Ag and Marketing Inspector made an unannounced inspection of the Goshen Humane Society shelter and dog control officer operation on November 3rd, 2021. Both were found to be in total compliance with the regulations. So I really congratulate them. They look at a lot of items and they passed on every item. Good for them. Okay, the next one is an approved motion to hold the town of Goshen annual reorganization meeting at 7 p.m. on January 3rd, 2021. I say 7 p.m. because that's how we've done it the last couple of years versus this meeting being at 7:30. So don't be late. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion regarding this motion to hold the town of Goshen annual reorganization meeting at 7 p.m. on January 3rd, 2021?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, under finance, discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay accounts payable check run on November 22nd, 2021 in the amount of $484,316.37. So I'd like to make a motion in that regard.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next one is discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay workman's comp claims in the amount of $3,355.22. So I'd like to make a motion in that regard.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay manual accounts payable run on October 31st, 2021 in the amount of $21,728.76.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And then as information, Christine's the second month in a row, or meeting in a row, no, month in a row. She has submitted a monthly financial report. In this case, it's for October. You can see the attached, it's many pages. And I would suggest, if you have questions on it, go see her. We would never get out of it, George.
No, I did have some questions, but I have to see her about the cybersecurity.
So there you go. Okay. There you go. All right, now I'm going to open the floor for privilege of the floor for anything anybody would like to talk about.
I'd like to get back to my water
Okay.
problem. This also filled my hot water heater.
Yes.
It took me 13 trips, 14 trips up from the basement to drain it out.
Yes.
It could have all been avoided if somebody would have rang my doorbell and said, Nick, we've got a problem. with water. This is the second time that something went well. The other time they just shut the water off completely to my block.
Right.
The shut off valve is right in front of my house.
Okay.
It could have easily rang my doorbell and my neighbors who was in the shower at the time and said, get out of the shower, we're shutting the water off.
Right.
I'd like to see something done.
When you went out and talked to Dominic, did you mention
Yeah,
that?
I mean, it's explainable. Yeah, it happens.
No, did he say yes, he would do that?
No.
Okay.
It's not his job.
We will manage that.
You know, I don't want to get anybody pissed off at anybody, because then they want to get pissed off at me. But, I mean, all I'm asking is to get a warning that this is, we're working on something, don't lose the water.
Okay. I agree.
Yeah, and my wife is still 36.
Yeah.
No, it's all, I know what happens. I know things go down and it takes repair. This repair was scheduled. They knew they were working on it. And all they would do is phone. There's something should be set up, though, that he doesn't have to go around and ringing doorbells. I mean, it could have been on the website. Maybe people check the website every day. I don't check it every day, but I did that morning after I saw this.
Right. We will work through something so it doesn't, we will try to preclude it from happening again. Okay.
It's back to normal now. I have to drain out the hot water heater. And it's normal. What normal is for Rocky, you know.
And as I mentioned to Sean tonight, we'll be looking at your water. Maybe this orthophosphate, we'll see. It's good. We will see.
I let this settle down and it formed a crust on the bottom.
Truly, as a chemist, I can tell you what that is. You take manganese, you take iron, you put fluorine with them, it creates a solid. It's a solid. It goes to the bottom over time. It lines all of your lines. Your lines have been out there 50 plus years. It's there. And so when we flush, we get it out. But in between flushings, you know, it's where it comes from.
And then asked him that day if he was going to flush the line after this, and he said no. He didn't flush the line, so it's still in there.
Oh yeah.
And that tank up on top of the building, up full.
You don't know. We'll take it down. We'll take a look at it.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, any other items? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion, then we adjourn the meeting? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, you too, John. Stay warm, it's gonna be cold out there. It's really cold. Oh, yes. Supposed to be, I bring my. Oh. Well,